And if you go back, all the signs were there. Nobody wanted to talk to them. Nobody cared about the product, right? And yet they kept pushing it. So if you're a CEO of a larger company, what you want to do is basically figure out how to measure this innovation so that you don't waste a lot of time. Bill Gates had a saying a long time ago, which was that the most important thing to do is to fail fast, right? That the character, and from his perspective as the CEO of Microsoft, founder of Microsoft, that he wanted everything to happen and he wanted it to fail quickly. And that was his theory.
And do you agree with that theory?
Yeah, I do. Fast failure is important because you can say it in a nicer way, but fundamentally at Google, we had this 70-20-10 rule that Larry and Sergey came up with. 70% of the core business, 20% on adjacent business, and 10% on other.
What does that mean, sorry?
Adjacent core business means search ads. Adjacent business means something that you're trying, like a cloud business or so forth. And the 10% is some new idea. So Google created this thing called Google X. The first product it built was called Google Brain, which was one of the first machine learning architectures. This actually precedes DeepMind. Google Brain was used to power the AI system. Google Brain's team of 10 or 15 people generated 10, 20, 30, $40 billion of extra profits over a decade. So that pays for a lot of failures, right? Then they had a whole bunch of other ideas that seemed very interesting to me that didn't happen for one or another, and they would cancel them. And and then the people would get reconfigured. And one of the great things about Silicon Valley is it's possible to spend a few years on a really bad idea and get canceled, if you will, and then get another job having learned all of that. My joke is the best CFO is one who's just gone bankrupt, because the one thing that CFO is not going to let happen is to go bankrupt again.
Yeah. Well, on this point of culture as well, Google, as such a big company, must experience a bunch of microcultures. One of the things that I've kind of studied it as a cautionary tale is the story of TGIF at Google, which was this sort of weekly all hands meeting where employees could ask the executives whatever they wanted to. And the articles around it say that it was eventually sort of changed or cancelled because it became unproductive.
It's more complicated than that.
Okay.
So Larry and Sergey started TGIF, which I obviously participated in, and we had fun. There was a sense of humor. It was all off the record. A famous example is the VP of sales, whose name was Omid, was always predicting lower revenue than we really had, which is called sandbagging. So we got a sandbag and we made him stand on the sandbag in order to present his numbers. It was just fun, humorous. We had skits and things like that. At some size, you don't have that level of intimacy and you don't have a level of privacy. And what happened was there were leaks. Eventually, there was a presentation, I don't remember the specifics, where the presentation was ongoing and someone was leaking the presentation live to a reporter. And somebody came on stage and said, "We have to stop now." I think that was the moment where the company got sort of too big.
I heard about a story that, because from what I had understood, this might be totally wrong, but it's all just things that Google employees have told me, was that there wasn't many sackings, firings at Google. There wasn't many layoffs. It wasn't really a culture of layoffs. And I guess in part that's because the company was so successful that it didn't have to make those extremely, extremely tough decisions that we're seeing a lot of companies make today. I reflect on Elon's running of Twitter. When he took over Twitter, the story goes that he went to the top floor and basically said, anyone who's willing to work hard, is committed to these values, please come to the top floor, everyone else you're fired. This sort of extreme culture of culling and people being sort of activists at work. And I wanted to know if there's any truth in that.
There's some. In Google's case, we had a position of why lay people off? Just don't hire them in the first place. It's much, much easier. And so in my tenure, the only layoff we did was 200 people in the sales structures right after the 2000 epidemic. And I remember it as being extremely painful, right? It was the first time we had done it. So we took the position, which is different at the time, that you shouldn't have an automatic layoff. What would happen is that there was a belief at the time that every 6 months or 9 months, you should take the bottom 5% of your people and lay them off. Problem with that is you're assuming the 5% are correctly identified. And furthermore, even the lowest performers have knowledge and value to the corporation that we can take it. So we took a very much more positive view of our employees, and the employees like that.